Alrighty. I haven't done this in a while, so it might take me a minute to get myself acclimated. Need to get this out of here. There we go. Oops. Oops. All right, so we're going to be discussing Chapter 14, the digestive system. And I'm just going to do a brief overview of major anatomical structures and digestive physiology. You have your projects, digestive diagrams, which you will be going more in depth about these things. So the function of the digestive system is to take all that yummy food that we consume, which there is a purpose that we consume this food. And it's not just because it tastes good, it's because we need to change the food energy that we get, and we need to convert it into a usable form. And as you should know, the form that we use is ATP. So we need to take food, bring it in our body, break it down to a point where we can actually absorb it to get it into our body. Because if you didn't know, everything that's actually in your food tube or your alimentary canal is actually considered outside of the body. And then we have to absorb it into our body and then take that stuff and harness it to make ATP. And then whatever stuff that we can't use, we have to excrete it in the form of waste or stool or feces, and that has to go out. So we basically have 4 different phases or 4 major functions of digestion. We have to ingest our food, which means take it in. Hopefully we do that voluntarily. We have to digest our food, and that needs to be done in 2 ways. We either do it physically and we have to do it chemically. Well, physically is we have to, break the food down by things that are mechanical, like chewing, and the propulsion of our stomachs, gnashing and gnarling food down here. Okay. Chemically is actually not just breaking food down so that it looks like a different substance. It's actually breaking chemical bonds, and chemical digestion is done by the use of enzymes. And we actually have enzymes along the tract of our alimentary canal, starting in our stomach. We have some enzymes in our one enzyme's in our mouth, some enzymes in our stomach, and then we have the majority of the enzymes will not be produced in the small intestine, but they're coming from the pancreas, and they will go to the small intestine. So the majority of chemical digestion is actually occurring there. So we have to bring the food in, then we have to physically and chemically break it down. We actually have to break it down until it's in its building block. And I want you to do a float back to chapter 2, where we learned our 4 organic molecules and their building blocks. So when we consume a carbohydrate, we have to break it down to its building block point, which would be think about it, what are the building blocks for carbohydrates? Monosaccharides. So we have to take monosaccharides, or carbohydrates, and break them down to the point of monosaccharides so that we can absorb them into our bloodstream. We have to take proteins. We have to break them down into amino acids. We have to take fats. We have to break those down into glycerol and fatty acids. Again, we have to break everything down to their building blocks because they need to be small enough for us to get them across our plasma membrane. And that's the absorption piece, and the majority of that takes place in the small intestine of nutrients. The large intestine is actually not a place for nutrient absorption. We have water absorbed there. And then anything that's left over, we're going to defecate as waste. So this is just kind of the overall digestive tract. You have one big long food tube that starts in the mouth and ends with the anus. And this is one long continuous tube that in a cadaver, if we were to stretch it out, it would actually be 30 feet in length. So right now you have 30 feet of food tube inside of you. Well, how the heck does that work? How do you get 30 feet of hose inside of your frame? Well, when you're alive, that food tube is very muscular and it's contracted. So it's much, much shorter. Okay. But it starts in the mouth, going down the esophagus. We hit the stomach. Then we have the small intestines, the large intestines, rectum, which is storage for waste, and anus, where waste is going to be coming out. Food actually passes through all of these things. Additionally, we have some accessory structures or accessory glands that support the digestive tract. Food doesn't actually go through these things, but we wouldn't be able to accomplish digestive physiology without them. Up here in the mouth, we have some glands, and these glands are producing saliva. We wouldn't be able to get our food down and start the chemical digestion of carbohydrates without saliva. And then here in our abdomen, we've got the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. All are very important accessory structures, but food doesn't actually pass through them. Through your digestive diagrams, you are going to go into much greater depth with all of these things. Another thing that you need to know with the digestive tract is that with this tube, that comes all the way down and around here, you are going to look at the wall. So it's a tube, so there's a hollow space called the lumen, if you remember lumen, okay? And in the wall, there are different sections. The innermost section is the mucosa, then we have the submucosa, muscularis externa, and then the serosa or adventitia, and you're going to have to learn all of those as well.